Hello and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode number 67 in an ongoing series designed for folks with a growth mindset or those who'd like to develop one. It's a chance to play with new ideas, new concepts, and to try on new mindsets and to play with the setting of the monitor. There we go. Okay, so it's been a full week last week, and it's already shaping up to be a full one this week. Hope that is something that's true in your world as well. Our line in this house is life is rich and full. So take a moment and click share underneath this video and invite your friends, your world, your community to join the conversation. I tend to try to pick quotes that I'm going to enjoy playing with, and then winnow it down to a selection of mindset playgrounds that I think this community is going to respond to. So this one is an intriguing one for me. Anyone can, and again, this is Oscar Wilde, anyone can sympathize with the sufferings of a friend, but it requires a very fine nature to sympathize with a friend's success. We look back to episode 5. That was the episode where he played with the idea from Teddy Roosevelt that comparison is the thief of joy. And that popped up in my head as soon as I saw this quote. And I think it sort of followed, it felt like it was going to follow the thread that this Oscar Wilde quote was going to trigger a spiral into the idea of playing with, I don't know, celebration instead of jealousy. Like, it's quite natural as a human. And I think whether it's nature versus nurture, that's a whole nother episode or conversation. But the idea that when we witness others' success, it's very easy to spiral into a comparison, particularly when they're in your field, your arena. We see somebody's success, the natural comparison hits of you end up comparing where you're beginning to their middle. And again, back in episode 5 from March of 2018, that's there for you to listen to. But then I realized that this was Oscar Wilde's invitation to taking a higher stand, sort of an invitation to intentionality and shifting the world at an energetic level. Again, anyone can sympathize with the sufferings of a friend, but it requires a very fine nature to sympathize with a friend's success. And the full quote continues on, sympathy with joy intensifies the sum of joy in the world, while sympathy with pain doesn't really diminish the amount of pain. And I like where it rolls to after that. The sympathy of man will be large, healthy, and spontaneous. He believed that when the political ills and the health-based ills were all solved by whatever ism he believed in and science, that then the sympathy of man will be large and healthy and spontaneous. Man will have joy in the contemplation of the joyous lives of others. I think that's what struck me. Man will have joy in the contemplation of the joyous lives of others, that sympathy with joy amplifies or expands the amount of joy in the world. Right? We have a negative connotation to go with sympathy, that it's always attached to the pain or suffering of others. And this isn't it. As the animals that humans are, we're wired for sympathy, but that's most often expressed as sympathy with pain, a sympathetic response to the suffering of another individual, someone with whom we have a personal connection or can imagine one. Right? That's easy. That's biology. That's instinct or humanity. Right? But sympathy with joy, having that sympathetic reaction to place our attention on the joy of another and to amplify that. It's as if sympathy can become a force multiplier. That to which we put our attention expands. So when we lean into a parallel, a co-creative experience of joy with another person with whom we have or can imagine a personal connection, when we sympathize with their joy, joy in this world expands. And it's odd. I get concerned about looking at the opposite, that when, that to which we put our attention expands, that when we put our attention on another's pain, that it expands the pain. Yes, I get that there's an arithmetic expansion. They're feeling pain, and our sympathetic reaction to their pain means that we are expanding pain. I get that. And I actually don't think that's a negative per se, because it allows a dissipation of that pain. The sympathy for pain can help the one who's suffering feel like they're not alone. They can feel connected. They can feel the human interplay. And so at the same time that it is arithmetically expanding pain in that moment, I hold that it allows the person who's suffering for that pain to dissipate and for the natural progression back to baseline. It allows that to happen more quickly. So while it does expand pain, I believe that sympathy with pain over time will eventually dissipate the pain. Now, the cool thing about sympathy with joy is that it amplifies it. Yes, arithmetically at the beginning, but then when you sympathize with joy, with another's joy, that amplification allows it to roll beyond just you and them. It's that pay it forward playground. You're both walking through the world with an amplification of joy. And yes, I'm making all this up. That's what we do. Welcome to being human. And yet that to which we put our attention expands. So this is a great example of, since it's all made up anyway, why not make up something that serves? All the way back to Rick Tamlin and conversations we've had at the very beginning of this broadcast series, back around Groundhog Day 2018, that this is that playground of, if it's all made up, which it is, our reaction to the world is completely made up. It's through our lenses, through our filters, and we choose how to decode the experiences that we have. So if it's all made up, why not make up something that serves? So to sympathize with joy, to have sympathy for someone in their moment of joy, someone with whom you have a personal connection or can imagine one, we get to amplify that joy. And there is a natural cascade forward. So where is there an opportunity for you to lean into someone's joy? The synchronicity of having this episode this weekend, when yesterday was graduation for our youngest child. Our son graduated from high school yesterday, and to watch these children that he grew up with, and to watch them perform and to share their art, whether it be performing or the media that was celebrated at senior night and throughout the week at the school, to watch these young adults share with the world what moves them, and to be with the joy that they're experiencing and that their families are experiencing, and to not only be in the joy of speeding towards empty nest and having all three of our children having reached this launch phase, to sympathize with the joy in the room. Oh my God, yes. And it was spoken to so often, the pain that all the families are anticipating of the children flying off and launching. Yeah, that was there. There was so much more leaning into the joy of these children launching into the world. And how remarkable was that, right? And so this quote being here for this week, sympathy with joy, right? That amplification was remarkable. I love timing. Anyone can sympathize with the suffering of a friend, but it requires a very fine nature to sympathize with a friend's success. A room full of the families of 106 other seniors graduating high school. The energy was so amazingly positive. Tears of joy as we watched them perform, as we watched them launch into the world. Wow. To sympathize with that, to walk out of that room and walk back into that world with that glow. And then to be in the room yesterday with these families and friends and extended family and watch as these children walked into the walked into the theater and walked across the stage and greeted each other in pairs and sat down, and then watching them go through the ceremony. It was a remarkable experience to be in a swell of joy. And to witness these children telling their stories and performing. Sympathizing with the joy of others, that to which we put our attention expands. So what comes up for me is that's what I want to bring to the world. There's so much work that's done within coaching, reteaching, refamiliarizing, reintroducing the idea of celebration. When we were children, we celebrated everything, every win, even every failure. We celebrated everything because the irrational exuberance of children. And that's how we move forward. The opportunity to celebrate the good, the bad, and the ugly, to celebrate the learning, to celebrate the play, to celebrate even celebrating the absence of failure. You know, that first time your kid rode the bike without falling, stopped on their own and cheered. That whole idea of celebrating everything. And then as we grow, whether it's acculturation, whether it's natural, to me, that piece is irrelevant. We can unpack all that later. The playground is that we forgot how to celebrate. And we only celebrate the big wins. A client closed, a new job, a graduation. We celebrate the big things and we forget to celebrate the small things along the way. And I think we get into this rhythm of, wow, a quick celebration, and then let's reset a goal. Great, next. And we skip over the joy. We skip over the energy that we can reap from it. We skip over that force multiplier of sympathy with another's success. We lose the energy that's available with that. Emily Gale asked a great question. Is criticism negative or positive? To critique something is merely to assess. So we look at it as criticism. It is not the denotation of it. There's no negative or positive attached to it. A critic is one that assesses and opines on an instance or an expression. Okay, so most critique tends to be negative. Welcome to where we are culturally. And yet, no, so criticism is neither negative nor positive. It's both. It depends on what's being brought. Good God, the Game of Thrones ended last night, and the entire world is critiquing how it came out. And yet, whether it's positive or negative, it's just a critique. When we celebrate the outcome, after the celebration, we get the chance to unpack it, to critique what worked, what didn't work, what went well, what didn't go well. So the opportunity to assess and learn from, so no, critique is neither negative or positive. It's merely review of outcome. And I maintain that that comes after celebration. Celebrate the outcome, and then you get to assess, critique, review, unpack, play with, and learn from what worked, what didn't, what was good that you want more of, What went away that you didn't want it to go, and how would you like to see it shifted, the pluses and deltas? So instead of just carrying that, what for the suffering of another, instead of just carrying that capacity to have sympathy for somebody else's pain, what if you worked this week on sympathizing with their joy? What if you spent this week looking around you for joy and the opportunity to show sympathy for that joy, to sympathize with a friend's joy and their joyous experiences? That to which we put our attention expands. So this week, where's there joy for you to show sympathy? Where can you be a force multiplier for joy? So the mindset that I'll hold this week is that I am a force multiplier for joy. And I will look for those opportunities to show sympathy with joy that others are experiencing. So between now and next week, what mindset will you choose?